The first time anyone heard the guttural scream echo through the ICU corridor, every nurse froze, every doctor stiffened, and the security guards instinctively reached for their radios. It was the sound of a man fighting death, a man once feared by enemies across continents, now trapped inside a broken body that refused to heal. They called him the Wounded SEAL Commander, and the hospital staff whispered his name like a warning. No one dared volunteer to care for him. No one, until a new nurse stepped forward and changed everything. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of compassion, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this deserve to be remembered. The hospital stood on the outskirts of San Diego, overlooking a calm blue ocean that felt painfully distant from the war raging inside one ICU room. Commander Michael Carter had once led elite Navy SEAL teams through the most dangerous missions imaginable. His reputation was carved from bravery, precision, and an iron will that refused to bend. But a covert operation gone wrong left his body shattered by shrapnel, his lungs burned by fire, and his nervous system in constant revolt. He survived what should have killed him, but survival came at a cost that no medal could redeem. Weeks in a medically induced coma were followed by relentless complications. When he finally woke, he was not the fearless warrior people remembered. He was a storm of pain, confusion, and uncontrollable rage, lashing out at anyone who came near. The nurses rotated shifts, counting the minutes until they could escape his room. Monitors constantly screamed alarms, for lines were ripped out, and staff members walked out shaken, some in tears. The hospital administration debated transferring him to a military facility, but his condition was too unstable. Every night, his tortured cries echoed through the ward, unsettling patients and staff alike. Doctors feared he might not survive another week. His body was failing, but even more alarming was his spirit, which seemed to be dissolving under the weight of trauma, guilt, and unbearable pain. Into this environment walked Hannah Brooks, a newly graduated nurse on her first ICU assignment. She was small-framed, soft-spoken, and carried the quiet confidence of someone who had learned resilience through hardship. Raised in a modest Christian household in rural Ohio, she had watched her father battle terminal illness with grace and faith, and her mother nurse him with unyielding devotion. That experience shaped her purpose. She believed deeply that healing was more than medicine, it was presence, patience, and unconditional care. When she saw Michael Carter's name on the assignment board, the room around her fell silent. Fellow nurses tried to warn her, but something inside her refused to back away. The first time Hannah entered his room, the tension was suffocating. Machines hummed and beeped in frantic rhythm. Michael lay restrained, his muscular frame trembling, sweat soaking the sheets, eyes darting wildly as if still trapped on a battlefield. His breathing was erratic, his face twisted in agony. The smell of antiseptic mixed with fear lingered in the air. Most nurses rushed through their tasks and left as quickly as possible. Hannah stayed. She moved slowly, deliberately, adjusting his lines, cleaning his wounds, and speaking softly, even when he couldn't respond. She treated him not as a problem to manage, but as a human being enduring unimaginable suffering. Day after day, Hannah returned to his bedside. She learned the patterns of his pain, the moments when his body stiffened before a spasm, the shallow breathing that preceded a panic attack. Instead of reacting with fear, she anticipated his needs. She adjusted medications carefully, repositioned him gently, and stayed beside him during the worst episodes. When his body convulsed and alarms blared, she did not step back. She held his hand and whispered prayers under her breath, believing that somewhere beneath the chaos, he could feel her presence. Slowly, subtle changes began to appear. His outbursts became less frequent. His breathing steadied during her shifts. Even the monitors seemed to settle when she was in the room. Doctors were baffled. Medically, nothing significant had changed. Yet his vitals stabilized, and his recovery, once considered impossible, began inching forward. Hannah brought small touches of humanity into his sterile world. She played soft hymns and instrumental music, adjusted the lighting to mimic daylight, and kept a small cross pinned discreetly to her uniform. She spoke to him about ordinary things, the ocean outside, the families waiting at home, the hope of tomorrow, even when he remained unresponsive. One evening, as a violent storm raged outside, Michael's heart rate spiked dangerously. He thrashed against his restraints, his breathing labored, tears slipping from the corners of his tightly shut eyes. The room filled with alarms, and a medical team rushed in, preparing for emergency sedation. Hannah stepped forward, gently placing her hand over his chest, grounding him with calm pressure. She focused on his breathing, synchronizing her own with his, murmuring encouragement. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, his body began to respond. The monitors quieted. The storm inside him eased. The room fell silent in awe. That night marked a turning point. Michael began opening his eyes more often. His gaze, once wild and unfocused, slowly found hers. Though words escaped him, his eyes conveyed confusion, exhaustion, and deep sorrow. Hannah met that gaze with unwavering kindness. She saw beyond the warrior and the wounds, glimpsing a man grieving the life he once knew. Over the following weeks, physical therapy sessions began. Each movement was agony, but Hannah stayed beside him, offering silent strength. Progress was painfully slow, yet undeniable. The impossible was unfolding in small, fragile steps. As Michael regained fragments of his strength, memories surfaced. The mission that went wrong. The teammates he lost. The guilt that haunted him. Though he couldn't yet speak, his tears spoke volumes. Hannah understood. She had seen suffering before, and she knew healing required patience. She prayed for him quietly, believing that faith could reach places medicine could not. Other staff members noticed the transformation, not just in Michael, but in the entire ward. His room, once filled with dread, now carried a cautious sense of hope. Months passed. The man once feared became a symbol of resilience. Michael began sitting up, then standing, then taking trembling steps with assistance. Each milestone felt miraculous. Doctors credited advanced treatments, but everyone knew the truth. Compassion had sparked a recovery no textbook could explain. Hannah never sought praise. She believed she was simply doing what she had been called to do. One morning, as sunlight poured through the window, Michael managed his first whispered words. They were barely audible, but they carried the weight of his journey. Gratitude. Faith. Hope. The staff stood outside his room, many in tears, witnessing the return of a man they had nearly lost. Hannah stepped back, her heart full, knowing she had been privileged to walk beside him through the darkest valley. As his strength returned, Michael requested to meet the nurses he had frightened away. With humility, he expressed remorse, acknowledging the pain he had caused during his darkest hours. Forgiveness flowed freely, and healing extended beyond his body into broken relationships. His story spread through the hospital, then the city, inspiring patients and caregivers alike. People spoke of the wounded commander and the gentle nurse who achieved the impossible. Before his transfer to a rehabilitation center, Michael asked for a moment alone in the quiet hospital chapel. Hannah joined him, standing a respectful distance away. Together, they reflected on survival, purpose, and the mysterious ways hope finds a path through despair. When he left, walking slowly but steadily, the entire ward gathered to watch. Applause echoed through the halls, not for heroism on a battlefield, but for courage born in suffering and compassion. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can change lives and that no one is beyond hope, please take a moment now to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories of faith and second chances alive. And before this story ends, leave a comment below with the word hope, so we can build a community rooted in compassion and encouragement. Michael Carter would continue his recovery for many months, but the impossible had already happened. A man broken by war rediscovered life. A young nurse discovered the power of unwavering love. In a quiet hospital overlooking the American coastline, two lives intersected, proving that miracles are not always thunderous events. Sometimes, they are gentle, patient acts of kindness, repeated day after day, until even the deepest wounds begin to heal.